Most entrepreneurs spend their entire career chasing money instead of building wealth. And it's the reason burnout is at an all-time high. Businesses can't stay standing. And no matter how much money is in your bank account, it somehow never feels like enough. Action. The truth is that so many entrepreneurs know how to make money. Few know how to build wealth. There is a difference. And it's ironic because every entrepreneur I speak with tells me they want to make more money. What business owner doesn't want to make more money? But if I really listen, not to the words they're saying, but the deeper message that they're communicating, they don't really want more money. They want to build wealth. I would say you don't really want to make more money. You want the feeling you think money is going to give you, the experience you think money is going to give you. And that would actually be wrapped up in living in wealth, not the money itself, but living a wealthy, abundant lifestyle. And in this case, building a business designed for wealth, not just the intake of money, not just for transactions, but wealth that goes beyond you, that sustains without you, and gives you this lifestyle, this quality of life that you're looking for. So I want you to imagine with me that you are on a 50-acre farm. There are all sorts of animals around. You've got goats, pigs, cows, chickens. You also have fruit trees. Maybe there's an orchard there. You have fields where strawberries are grown. This farm produces all sorts of vegetables, fruits, corn, kale. Everything that farm produces is money. The eggs, the fruit, vegetables, raw milk. The farm itself is wealth. The land, the soil, the roots, the years of cultivation that have gone into producing over and over and over again. The thing is, most people focus on collecting produce, but the wealthy focus on building and cultivating farms. So the easiest way to describe this and explain this in a business context, money is short term and it's transactional. So you can go on that farm and pick, consume, sell the produce, the fruit, the vegetables, but it's going to spoil in the next week. On the other hand, wealth is lasting. Where money is transactional, wealth is actually transferable. So the land you cultivate right now will reap harvest in the next season and the next season. The farm you build now, that you cultivate now, could sustain generations that come after you. Where money is a byproduct of value, wealth is the ability to steward, create, and multiply that value. So wealth essentially is the larger umbrella that money lives underneath. So if you are spending your days chasing money, if you are building your business to simply create money, you are never going to access the level of abundance that you're not only called to live in, but the abundance that you are called to create on behalf of other people. The abundance that goes beyond yourself, beyond your day-to-day, your investment accounts, your lifestyle, but your children, your future children. Building your business for money looks entirely different than building your business for wealth. And deep down, although you might say you want more money, you truly want more wealth. And when you build for wealth, money is a byproduct, but the money you create, you can sustain, you can scale, and you can multiply. The truth is that it's actually pretty simple and straightforward to make money. It might not be easy. There's a reason why not everyone is an entrepreneur. Not everyone creates a business and sells and has to create cash flow because there's work and grit that go into it. But it's pretty straightforward. It's transactional. It's value for money. It's exchange. But creating wealth is a whole other ballgame. It requires stamina. It requires stewardship. It requires vision. A lot of entrepreneurs are good at making money because it makes you feel good in the short term. Now, of course, we need our basic financial needs met, but it's much easier to make money and to feel and experience the instant reward from that than it is to experience an instant reward from creating wealth. You don't really get an instant gratification or a hit of dopamine from what it takes to build wealth, but you do with money. It feels good when you get that high that comes with landing a big high-ticket client, when a client resigns, when they stick with you and they retain with you. It's exciting when a launch goes really well and you make $50,000, $100,000. You get that infusion of cash that makes you feel good. But far too often, I meet with entrepreneurs that know how to have big months. They know how to make good money, but they can't sustain it. After the launch, they're burnt out. They're ready to quit again, and it takes 6 months to do another launch because they have to catch their breath. Because they have to convince themselves to do it again and again and again. Because they know how to create money in the short term, but they haven't learned how to build for wealth. It looks different, it feels different, and it doesn't give you a dopamine hit. You're not going to get recognition from it. You're not going to be celebrated and applauded for creating wealth because it is quiet. It is methodical. It is faithful stewardship when no one is looking. It's digging your hands in the soil. It's planting seeds when no one is looking, when no one is clapping and screaming and celebrating for your victory, for your high cash month. You don't build wealth for the recognition and the applause. You build it for what it's going to create and sustain and multiply beyond today. But it looks different to move towards wealth and to build your business for wealth. And if you are living your day to day for the next dopamine hit, if you are living day to day in order for your business to entertain you, to be fun, to give back to you all the time, you will not create wealth. You will always pursue the best next thing that's going to give you the quickest return, the most instant gratification, the fastest dopamine hit so that you can feel good and excited and energized about your business. Our culture teaches us to build our business for dopamine hits. It's why we have to stay plugged in all the time, posting every single day, seeing how many people viewed our content, liked our content, purchased from us this month. What's our month-over-month revenue look like? What's our quarter-over-quarter revenue look like? I always encourage my clients to measure their revenue year over year. I don't care about how much revenue you're making this month. I want to know what's projected for the next 6 to 12. I want to know what next year is going to look like. Because I'm not here to help you hit a $50,000 month. I'm here to help you build a business that creates, sustains, and multiplies wealth. And yes, that includes money. Yes, that includes high cash months. Yes, that includes your biggest revenue year to date. But it also makes sure that you can sustain it. It also makes sure that not all of that relies on you and your presence in order to deliver. Because if it does, you will burn out and you'll be capped and you'll constantly be questioning, am I meant to be in business or am I not? I should be further along than this, but I'm not. So we have to make this shift from chasing money all the time, seeking a dopamine hit from the next accomplishment, achievement, accolade, to getting on our knees in the soil and planting seeds that will reap harvest for years to come. That is building wealth. That's what it looks like to build something beyond yourself. So if we go back to the nature of wealth, it's about transferable value. So if we're building our businesses for wealth, Our businesses need to be able to facilitate and deliver without our constant presence, without us in the room. It has to stay standing without us. So today I'm going to share a few shifts you can make, a few areas that I want you to focus on if you're ready to stop chasing money, to stop facilitating transactions, and really build your business in a way that paves the way for true wealth. So the first one, I want you to build a recurring book of business. I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I talk to that know what they're making this month. They might know what they're making next month, maybe this quarter. When we go beyond that, they don't know. They have no clue because they've built their business off of one-off projects, one-off exchanges. And at some point that becomes unsustainable. At some point that results in a constant chase. There's no level of stability and predictability there. But what people don't realize in the small business world, service pro world, is that the value of your business relies heavily on your recurring book of business. So growing up, I lived up close and personal to entrepreneurship and wealth building every single day. My sister and I are actually 7th generation entrepreneurs. So I have very fond memories of Saturday mornings. I would grab my journals. I would make a coffee. I would go out onto our screened-in porch with my dad, and we would talk about business building. We would talk about wealth, God, changing the world, pursuing our dreams. But at the time, my dad was heavily in the business world. He built a business for decades, actually part of which he built with his father. And so he was always sharing lessons and takeaways with us. And those are some memories that I will cherish forever. When it came time to sell his business, the reason he was able to sell his business shocked me. They were used to doing big jobs. They landed contracts that equated to millions and millions of dollars. So they knew what it was like to land big contracts. They did that regularly, but that wasn't what made his business valuable. It was his recurring book of business. In fact, his recurring book of business 6 times the value of it. Why is that? Typically speaking, big contracts are going to signal a level of volatility and also personal dependency on the founder. But recurring business signals stability, and it also signals this concept of transferable value. When you have recurring business, that is much easy to transfer to someone than your one-off projects that are historic or they'll be wrapping up soon. So your recurring book of business is one of the most valuable things that you can focus on and create. So right now, if you are working off of one-off projects, we need to think beyond that. We need to think bigger, and we need to truly think about this concept of stability and predictability, because that's not only going to make you feel more supported as a founder, but that's naturally going to translate into a higher value of your company if you ever were to sell it. It's going to result in more predictability, which allows you to pay employees and team members, which is going to contribute to some of the other pillars I'm going to share with you shortly. But the value of a company is only as high as its ability to transfer value without the owner in the room. So we have to start thinking about the nature of your business, the nature of your offers. Can you transfer value without being in the room? If not, we have to think about a few shifts we have to make. And some of what I'm going to share next is going to help with this. But specifically speaking, when it comes to building a recurring book of business, I want you to look at right now, how can you increase the value that you bring to your clients? How can you start thinking about not just bringing value on a project that takes a few months? How can you bring value to your clients, not for a month or two, but for years? How can you be such a no-brainer value add for your clients that they bring you on for years and years? This isn't how most small business owners are thinking. They're thinking about quarterly revenue, monthly revenue, yearly revenue. But eventually, we need to think bigger. We need to think beyond that. The more value you can bring, the more money you're going to make, because money is a byproduct of value. So if you want higher paying clients, we need to bring more value. If you want more stable, predictable, consistent revenue, we need to lengthen, widen, and expand the amount of value you can bring to your clients. And if you currently can only think of value that you can bring for a project 2 or 3, then this is your first piece of homework. I want you to go and think about how you could serve your clients for years. The way I describe this to my clients is how can you make your business sticky? So once you stick to the client, once they say yes the first time, your brand, your service is so sticky that it's really hard to peel off. Not because we're trying to manipulate or take from your clients, but because you are just so much of a clear value add that they don't even want to think about parting ways. There's so many micro ways that we pave the way to this. When we work on this with our clients, building their recurring book of business, we plant really small seeds in the beginning, in the early stage relationship, to really position them as a long-term partner and an ongoing integration into their clients' businesses and lives. So think about what it would look like to serve your clients for years, not just a couple of months. And then on top of that, we have to think about how we can make your value add extremely crystal clear to your clients. So it's one thing to have the value in place and bring it, but we also have to make sure that as you're working with your clients month over month, you're finding pathways to show them the value, to lay it out, to make your case, to show everything that you're contributing to, that you're accomplishing, so that they are regularly getting their eyes on evidence that you are of value and that you're contributing towards the trajectory of whatever it is they're working towards. That is what is going to create strong retention for you and support your ongoing growth of your recurring book of business. Number 2 is designing scalable offers. So if every single thing that you offer right now requires you in order to facilitate and deliver, you are not building a business designed for wealth. You are trading time for money, and eventually you will be capped. There's a certain order we have to go in when it comes to making your offers more scalable in order to get you from point A to point Z, and we can't skip any one of these stages, which I see entrepreneurs do very often. So your offers need to be sustained before they can scale. Your offers need to be able to scale before they can ever multiply. So identify which season you are in right now and get committed to mastering that level before you try to go to anything else. I can't tell you the amount of entrepreneurs that are trying to scale before they've sustained. You just can't. So if you're in a season where you feel like you are running around like a chicken with its head cut off, you are likely in the season of figuring out how to sustain. If things feel chaotic, we need to sustain. We need to standardize. However, if you're in a season where you're booked out, your offers are pretty stable, we've got a good, recurring book of business, you are getting to the point where you're capped. You feel like you don't have the energy to allocate to actually growing. You are in a season of scaling so that we can multiply. So pinpoint where you're at right now and get committed to mastering that level before you try to get to the next one. So for most small business owners and service providers that we work with, scaling comes down to a couple different things. I'm going to limit it to just 2 for our conversation today, but number 1 would be team expansion. And number 2 would be offer diversification. So I want you to ask yourself, who or what do you need in order to multiply delivery? Specifically, if you're a service provider and you want to scale your service-based business, you need to be able to multiply delivery if you're going to multiply money. Those 2 are connected. And because you're one person, you cannot do that by yourself. So you have to start looking at what do you need to get in place. Now, for every single one of our clients, this eventually and inevitably looks like at least 1 to 2 other people that support on the team, that have a specific role on the team. Of course, you can look at things like AI, you can leverage different softwares in order to improve efficiency. That's of course on the table, but historically speaking, from what I've seen, it's always going to require at least 1 more person outside of you if you're scaling a service service-based business. At this stage, with how everything works, with how AI has progressed, that's what it requires. So you need to be thinking about right now, if you are preparing to scale, but you don't have the right people in place, you're not going to be able to scale. Start thinking about the roles you need to fill, the responsibilities you need to offload so that you can do what you do best and you can still focus on growth, scaling, and multiplication. So get your people in place. Get your boots on the ground. Now, the other thing we have to ask is how can you multiply revenue without increasing your time? For my service-based business owners, a lot of this is going to be connected to your team, to your people, getting the right people in place. But beyond that, there's other opportunities when it comes to the nature of your offers. Some of our service-based business owners have introduced passive income divisions, and that is something they can sell on autopilot. They never have to stop selling it because it's never going to cap them. So they found a way to essentially teach and educate people that do similar things to them in order to drive an additional revenue stream or multiple revenue streams. So passive income offers are a great one to think about. Some of our other clients end up introducing done with you offers, DIY offers. Maybe you say that you want to do more active mentorship, and so you introduce some sort of group program, mastermind, or hybrid program that delivers value in a different way than facilitating on services. So really a lot of this is going to depend on your vision for the future, what you ultimately want to be working on as the founder and the CEO, and ultimately what offers you want to prioritize. Because there's a lot of different ways to diversify depending on what it is that you want to do. And maybe it's a combination of multiple of these options. All right, and the final one is developing a streamlined infrastructure. A question I want to ask you is, can your work be repeated without you? Would someone else be set up for success today if you, God forbid, were hospitalized? There was some reason why you couldn't get to your computer. Could someone jump into your business today and implement without you? So some of that's going to come down to the people you have in place, the offers you've created, but it's also going to come down to infrastructure. And if you've taken the time to design and develop that before you are in the middle of a fire situation, an emergency situation, such as this example. So when I say infrastructure, what do I mean? This is things like your systems, your SOPs, your workflows, your automations. If you don't already have something set up in the form of a project management system, that's the first place that I would start. This tends to be the category that most people put off because it's not necessarily hard. I mean, there might be a little learning curve on the tech side, depending on how tech savvy you are or not, but it really just takes time. It's one of those things that just takes a little bit of extra time for you to build out your processes, your protocols, your workflows, your SOPs. Like all of that documentation needs to be developed. It needs to be on hand in a central system, like a software, like in your Google Drive. All of that needs to be in place so that someone else can come in. They know exactly where to go. They know exactly what documentation to look at to facilitate on, for example, one of your offers from start to finish, or one of your processes like onboarding or offboarding, or even looking at your marketing department and what your content production process looks like. So this tends to be something that when we work with our clients, we slowly chip away at this over time. This is something that you will inevitably always be working on and refining, just depending on how things are changing in your business and what works best for you and the team. You'll constantly be refining. But this is an area that you don't want to put off. Just take it from me, after working with so many business owners that put this off, it becomes a very, very big project. Becomes a lot of work that's just unnecessary. Slowly chip away at it. And one of the best areas to look at for you, if you're starting from scratch, I want you to look at the offer that brings in the most money right now. Maybe that's a specific service. What does it take to facilitate on and deliver that offer from start to finish? So think about all the way from onboarding to the facilitation, delivery, the offboarding. Put documentation in place for that. If you already have a team member that would support with delivering on that, facilitating on that, what you can also do is put a trial run on the calendar. So get the documentation in place, put a trial run on the calendar for a particular client project, completely take your hands off the wheel and let your team member facilitate. See what happens, see what comes up, see what questions they have, what gaps are in your process. This is something that I really like to do when we're preparing for maternity leave with some of our clients, and they are going to keep everything running operationally while they're away. We do several trial runs with the team where the founder is completely hands off the wheel, completely surrendered to the process, and we see what the team does. We see if they run into any particular issue that delays the project or completely holds the project back. This will very quickly show you how strong your infrastructure is, how reliable your team is, and what we need to do in order to refine your processes so that you really can step away and the business will not crumble. Ultimately, let this be a sign to stop chasing money. Stop obsessing over collecting produce and start building towards something that is going to reap harvest again and again and again. Start shifting the way that you are approaching your business, that you're building your business, not just for transactions, not just for revenue this month, but truly for lasting value, transferable value, building your business in a way so you could resell it one day if you wanted to, so that it can continue to produce and multiply money without your presence for you, for your family, for your team, and beyond. I want to encourage you to steward what is in your hands faithfully. Be willing to get on your hands and your knees, dig your hands in the dirt, plant seeds while no one's watching, while you're not getting recognition, while no one is applauding you, because that is how wealth is created. Slowly, methodically, and when no one is watching.